everybody, this is Shashwat, Mystic Monk, and I hope everyone is doing good and are safe. Now, in our last video that we did on the basics of color theory, we saw how by mixing different colors with each other, we can create a different color altogether, and how by using the technique that we saw in that video, we can change the colors of our images. Now that process is called color grading. Now we are aware of color grading process in motion pictures or in movies, but why is it so important? Well, color grading helps uplift our images. It gives our images the mood that we want it to represent. And as it is with the motion pictures, color grading a still image or a photograph will do the same with the photograph. It will help us express a mood, just as we create a different lighting setup for our photographs to indicate a mood. So does color in our images does the same. So this particular video would be split into either a 2-part series or a 3-part series, because there are so many methods of doing a color grading. We would start off with selecting your basic colors in Adobe Camera Raw, and when we move on to Photoshop, we will see what different methods we can use to color grade our image. So cramping all those informations into just one video would be too much information. So let's see how many parts I can split this into, so that you guys so that it would be easier for you guys to follow. Alright, so let us just start with our color grading process. So basically there are 2 ways of going about color grading. We can either start by establishing a proper white balance for our image. If we are working with a client who is very finicky and very nitpicky about the colors that he or she would like to have in the images, then it is wise to use a gray card. If we haven't used a gray card, then it would be advisable on our part that we select a proper white balance which would be true to its color. Now there is no such thing as a correct white balance when we are not using a gray card, mind you. And when it comes to color grading, it is about the mood that one wants to signify or one wants to represent in the images. So that was one way of going about it, and the second way of going about it is by the values of luminosity, like how you want your highlights to be, how you want your shadows to be. Suppose if for this image, I want my highlights to be cyan and my shadows to be warm. So I could very easily go about into split toning, and I can put my highlights into cyan color and bring up the saturation, and do the same for the shadows, just that I would be warming up my shadows. So I could have this look. Alright, so I could have this look. Now let's just reset this and see if we are thinking about grading this image at the point of view of a white balance, then what do we do? Now, whichever way we might choose to go about, what I suggest is we achieve the kind of final look that we want for our image. We achieve a very close to that color, close to that look, from the very beginning of our raw conversion process. So if we are doing that, it would help us like go closer and closer and finally finish the image with the kind of look, with the kind of color grade that we want. Alright. Now it doesn't mean that you would go overboard and do everything in just one go. No. But a very close look to the finished look that we want to achieve. Alright. So now let us proceed. If we want to color grade this image based on white balance, so we have this white balance picker tool, and we would point it somewhere where we think should be a proper gray area. So let us say this portion of the skirt. Alright, now you saw that my temperature has shifted to 5750 Kelvin, and tint has shifted to a positive of 11. Now if I were to pick my color picker tool, sample picker tool, and point it at the same area where I chose my white balance from, I could see that the red, green and blue have the same digits, right? Have the same values. So it means that this area is a proper neutral gray. Now suppose I were to pick a different area, let's say this. Now we can see that this area has a bit of warmth into it. So if I were to pick this, alright, so we can see that red here is 45, green here is 39 and blue is 34. Now if I were to pick this area as my white balance picker, then we would see what happens to our image. Our image would turn kind of bluish. Here we go. Why? Because here we had much more amount of reds. So to balance it out, to cancel it, to make it neutral, what Photoshop did was it pushed in blues, and hence our whole image turned bluish. We don't want that. Alright, so we would revert that change and we would stick with this white balance that we got. Now let us clear the samples and move forward. Now taking this as my starting point. Alright, now what I want to do here is I want to keep the yellow of the highlights. Alright, maybe turn it into a little golden yellow or maybe orangish, and I want to inject a little bit of cyan into my shadows. Okay, that is the look that I want from my final image. Alright, so let us just proceed. First of all, let us just change our profile to classic chrome, because that is what I do, and I will bring my clarity up 20 and my vibrance up to 20. Alright, and then I would go here and I would bring my hue for the highlights to that golden orangish color, and I would bring my hue for my shadows to a cyan color, and I wouldn't inject much, just 8 points is enough, because I haven't done much with the highlights as well. I have just injected 12, the value 12 for it. Alright, now we would lessen the contrast. I'm just starting this, making a proper base from which I could edit. Now I would increase or open up my shadow area. I would open up my blacks as well, and as I can see, I could do with a little brightening of the image, so I would just brighten it very little. Alright, So let us suppose this is my starting point, and I want my color grade to be somewhere within this color look. Alright, now I'll end this video with this. When we come into a second part of the video, we would be taking care of the color grade in Photoshop. So I'll see you all in part 2 of this video. This is Mystic Monk Shashwat saying goodbye, and please do take care of yourselves and your family members, and please be safe. This is Mystic Monk signing off.